Jason's lyric had some of the wildest moments you'll ever see in a 90s hood love story. A man making love in an electronics store, a carjacking that came out of nowhere, and Jada Pinkett, yeah, she went there in this film. But beneath all that chaos was a deep, emotional story about love, trauma, and trying to escape the cycle. Jason's lyric didn't get the flowers it deserved when it dropped, but it left a mark. So today, we're running it back, the cast of Jason's lyric, then and now. Let's talk about the faces that made this film unforgettable. First up, we have Mad Dog, played by the one and only Forest Whitaker. Now listen. Mad Dog was a good man, at least he used to be. He was married to Gloria and had 2 young sons, and early in the film we see a glimpse of that loving father. He'd take his boys out to the fields, soak up the sunshine, and just enjoy being present with them. There was a calmness in those moments, a kind of peace that makes you wish it could have lasted. But then came Vietnam. When Mad Dog returned from the war, he was no longer the same man. He lost a leg, and somewhere along the way, he also lost his peace of mind. The trauma changed him. He spent most of his days drinking, and his temper? It was scary. He became abusive toward Gloria, the woman who once loved him deeply. You could tell Mad Dog believed she didn't want him anymore because of his missing leg, and maybe part of him thought she had already moved on. Either way, it hurt to watch. I genuinely felt sorry for him. Forest Whitaker took on this heavy role at just 33 years old. By then, he had already built a strong foundation in film. His debut came back in 1982 with Everybody Gets It in the End, and he made waves in classics like Platoon, 1986, Bloodsport, 1988, and A Rage in Harlem, 1991. But Forrest isn't just a brilliant actor, he's a filmmaker too. He directed Strapped in 1993 and Waiting to Exhale in 1995, proving he could tell powerful stories from behind the camera as well. After Jason's lyric, his career shot up to even greater heights. We'd be here all day trying to name everything he's done because this man has truly worked. From blockbusters to indie gems, he's done it all. Today, Forest Whitaker is 63 years old, still one of the most respected names in the industry, still making moves, and still showing us what masterful storytelling looks like. Let's move on to Mad Dog's partner, Gloria, beautifully portrayed by the late Suzanne Douglas. Now, earlier, I might have jumped the gun and said she was married to Mad Dog, but truth be told, I got carried away with who Mad Dog used to be before the Vietnam War. The sad reality? Gloria wasn't his wife. They weren't married. They just happened to share 2 boys, who we'll get to later. Gloria was the rock of that household. She worked as an assistant manager at a company, trying to hold it all together. She was strong, focused, and doing her best to raise her sons right, all while dealing with a man who came back from war as someone she barely recognized. Mad Dog would only show up here and there, usually drunk or angry, and more often than not, just to stir up trouble. You couldn't help but feel for Gloria. She carried the burden of raising 2 boys on her own, with love, patience, and grit. And when she refused Mad Dog's offer to finally marry him, that was the moment everything turned. He snapped, and what followed was one of the most disturbing and pivotal scenes in the film. Her strength in that moment? Unshakable. Suzanne Douglas played Gloria with heart and grace. She was 37 years old at the time, and by then, she had already made waves in the 1989 dance drama Tap, where her performance earned her an NAACP Image Award. She also appeared in The Inkwell, showing off her incredible range. Television audiences also knew her well. She appeared in The Cosby Show, Against the Law, and I'll Fly Away, but it was her role as Jerry Peterson in The Parent Hood, 1995, that brought her widespread recognition. Suzanne Douglas was truly loved in her lifetime. She had a warmth and elegance that made her unforgettable on screen. Sadly, she passed away on July 6, 2021, at the age of 64, after a battle with pancreatic cancer. May she rest in peace. Her presence is missed, but her legacy continues to shine through every role she gave her all to. Up next is Jason, played by Sean Hutchinson, the oldest of the 2 boys born to Mad Dog and Gloria. Jason was just your everyday kid, loved shooting hoops with his younger brother Joshua, and spending carefree days out in the yard. The 2 were practically glued at the hip, always laughing, always together. But while they shared good times, Jason carried a heavier burden. He could see things for what they were, the way their mom struggled to keep the home afloat, and how their dad, once full of life and love, came back from the Vietnam War as a broken man. Jason wasn't necessarily Mad Dog's favorite, but he also didn't bump heads with him. Not at first, anyway. He tried to keep the peace, unlike Joshua, who was often frozen in fear. But that fragile balance came crashing down one fateful night, when young Jason was forced into a heartbreaking moment that would change his life forever, taking his own father's life. It was an act of defense, not intent, but the trauma ran deep, and you felt every bit of it. The casting team deserves real credit here because Sean Hutchinson looked like a young Allen Payne, who played the grown-up Jason. It was honestly spot on. Now, by my estimates, Sean Hutchinson would have been about 12 years old during the filming of Jason's Lyric. He studied acting at the prestigious Second City Theater in Chicago, a strong start for any performer. But while his acting career didn't quite take off after this film, he didn't walk away from creativity. Today, Sean Hutchinson is 43 years old, and he's made a name for himself as a songwriter, producer, and rapper. His talents have found their way into indie film soundtracks, where he's written, produced, and even performed lead vocals. The spotlight may have shifted, but the art never left. What goes through your mind when you see this face right here? Fear, isn't it? This is the face of a little boy watching the father he once loved turn into someone he no longer recognizes. This is young Joshua, played by Burley Moore. Joshua was just a kid, wide-eyed, innocent, and full of love for his family. He had a crooked childhood, though, the kind that chips away at your spirit. See, he remembers the good days, when his dad would take him and his big brother Jason out to the fields, when they'd soak in nature and have those beautiful daddy-son moments. But that was before Vietnam, before Mad Dog came back, not just without a leg, but without a soul. Joshua couldn't understand it. How could a man who once loved them so deeply become a violent stranger? He feared his father. And honestly, my heart broke for the young man. But despite all that fear, he wanted to protect his mama. And on that fateful night, when Mad Dog was roughing her up, yelling at her to marry him, Joshua didn't just stand there. He acted. He took the gun, Mama's gun. And for a second there, I really thought he was the one who pulled the trigger. It wasn't him. But what he saw, what he felt, never left him. All that trauma got embedded in his soul, and as we later see, it followed him into adulthood. That little boy grows up to become a menace to society. Now, real talk. I've searched high and low for anything about Burley Moore, the young actor behind Joshua, and I couldn't find a thing. Not a single credit after Jason's Lyric. It's like he ghosted Hollywood. My best guess is he's probably around 39 years old today, and honestly, he might not even remember he was in this movie. But you know what? Whoever cast this role nailed it, because young Joshua looked exactly like Bohem Woodbine, who played the grown-up version. Little Joshua grew up to be a menace. No question about that. And the man who brought that grown-up version to life? None other than Bohem Woodbine. Now let's be real, he really resembled that young kid, didn't he? And while we're on the subject of looks, if Dave Chappelle had an evil twin, it might just be Bohem Woodbine. Wild eyes, sharp grin, unpredictable energy, the whole package. Joshua, as an adult, is a hard head through and through. When we first meet him all grown up, he's just being discharged from prison. And honestly, you can tell right away, he hasn't changed a bit. Always drinking, always in trouble. He struggles to hold down a job, and when he does get one, he messes it up badly. Like when his mom pulls strings to hook him up with a gig, he turns around and steals from her register. Who does that? He's constantly clashing with his mom, and she doesn't sugarcoat anything. At one point, she flat out tells him he's got the ghost of Mad Dog in him. And if it weren't for Jason, she would have thrown him out a long time ago. Now, Bohem Woodbine was just 21 years old when Jason's Lyric came out, and at the time, he was a rising talent. 1994 was a big breakout year for him in film, but he'd already made waves in the 1993 HBO film Strapped, which was a gritty, underrated gem in itself. Bohem is one of those underrated actors, The kind who shows up, steals the scene, and leaves you thinking about his character long after the movie ends. He's had a strong, steady career, appearing in memorable films like Crooklyn, 1994, Panther, 1995, Dead Presidents, 1995, Black Dynamite, 2009, and Queen and Slim, 2019. Today, he's 52 years old and still shining bright in Hollywood, holding it down, one intense performance at a time. For every night, there's day, and if there was ever someone who stood as the complete opposite of Joshua, it was his big brother Jason, played by Allen Payne when he was just 26 years old. While Joshua was out there giving mama headaches and wreaking havoc left, right, and center, Jason was the one keeping the family afloat. He could hold down a job, he listened to his mama, he stayed out of trouble. Jason was perfect. Or so it seemed. But truth be told, Jason was broken too. He just knew how to carry the weight without spilling it on everyone around him. Let's not forget, he took his own father's life as a child. That kind of trauma doesn't just go away, yet somehow, Jason grew up to be the real hero of the family. He worked at an electronics store, minding his business, keeping things in check, and man, he sacrificed a lot. Remember that $20,000 job offer in Dallas? He turned it down. Lyric wanted him to move out of that neighborhood, to start fresh, and he hesitated. Why? Because of Joshua. Jason stayed for his brother. That's a level of loyalty that cuts deep. And Allen Payne? He went all out in this role, especially those dreamy bayou scenes with Lyric. Allen Payne started his career in the 1989 film Rooftops, followed by a breakout role in New Jack City, 1991. That was the film that really put him on the map. Then came CB4 in 1993, where he showed off his comedic side. He kept busy with films like Vampire in Brooklyn, 1995, Blue Hill Avenue, 2001, and Players Ball, 2003. On the small screen, he popped up in The Cosby Show, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and of course, he became a household name thanks to Tyler Perry's House of Pain. But here's the thing, and I say this with love, it always felt like Allen Payne didn't live up to his full potential. He was a hotshot in the 90s. The talent, the looks, the charisma, he had it all. But if you look at his filmography now, it's not as rich as it should be for someone who was once on fire. Today, he's 56 years old, still around, but it feels like somewhere along the way, he lost that spark, that fire. Maybe life took him on a different path. Maybe he chose peace over pressure. Either way, Allen, if you're out there, just know you gave us something special with Jason, and we still remember. Up next is Lyric, played by Jada Pinkett. And let's be real, Lyric wasn't just a name, she was poetry in motion. She was that girl from around the block who hated everything about the hood. The violence, the noise, the broken dreams, she was over it. Her own brother was part of the problem, standing for everything she despised. And because of that, Lyric kept to herself, locking her heart up like it was on parole. She worked as a waitress, but her real job? Fantasizing about freedom. She'd spend her evenings just looking at the sunset, daydreaming about getting out, somewhere peaceful, somewhere green, somewhere far from the sirens and sorrow. Then she meets Jason, a dude who wasn't just easy on the eyes, but carried that same longing inside him. And just like that, she sees a shot at love. Jason had a crush from the jump, and Lyric, she was feeling him too, but she was scared. Scared of loving someone who might not make it out. Scared of another broken promise. But the chemistry? Undeniable. And let's not kid ourselves. Jason's Lyric had you doing double takes like, wait, did we just see her naked? Yes. Yes, you did. Jada went all out in this one. She was just 23 and oozing raw talent. Her film debut came the year before in Menace to Society, and just like in that one, she's once again the girl trying to save a brother. 1994 was her year. Jason's Lyric, The Inkwell, and A Low Down Dirty Shame all dropped, and she crushed every role. Then came Set It Off, The Nutty Professor, Scream 2, and eventually the Matrix series, where she brought serious edge as Niobe. I don't even need to say much more about Jada because you already know, she's a household name. But damn, that electronics store scene? Jada and Allen? That was cinematic heat. If Will Smith ever watched that scene too close, he'd probably side-eye the TV. And thank goodness Tupac wasn't cast as Jason, because that scene might have lived rent-free in Will's mind forever. Ever seen a guy who's hung up all day at the strip club, eyes glued to cheeks clapping like it's church on Sunday? Or that one friend who loves women more than he loves breathing? That dude, that was Rat, played by none other than Eddie Griffin. Now, why they called him Rat? I don't know. Maybe it's because he was always sneaking around, always in the mix, or maybe it's because he was just that dude who could sniff out a woman from a mile away. You never really knew what Rat was up to, but one thing was clear. He and Joshua went way back. Childhood friends, birds of a feather, two peas in a troublemaking pod. But here's the twist. Rat wasn't all bad. For all his wild antics and chasing skirts, there was a decent guy in there. Remember when Gloria tried throwing a little welcome home party for her son, and Joshua shows up drunk, embarrassing everybody? Rat was the only one who had the decency to apologize. A small moment, but it showed you he had a heart. Eddie Griffin, the man behind the mayhem, was 26 years old when he played Rat. He had already started his film career in The Last Boy Scout, 1991, but the 90s? That's when this man unlocked cheat code status. Stand-up comedy, movies, TV, Eddie Griffin was everywhere, and he brought that raw, unfiltered, no-holds-barred energy every single time. And man, Eddie is wild. He's got 11 kids. Yeah, 11. And he's been married and divorced more times than Joshua got jobs, over 4 times. This man is living proof that chaos and comedy go hand in hand. Today, Eddie Griffin is 56 years old, and he's still out here doing his thing, especially on the stand-up stage. Still funny, still loud, still unapologetically Eddie. Moving on, we've got Ron, played by Lamar Tate, Joshua's prison buddy turned street mentor, if you can even call him that. Ron was that so-called friend who did time with Joshua, and when they both got out, he pretended to look out for him, told Joshua to stop hustling small time and start dealing with real gigs, promised to hook him up with someone who'd make him rich. Ron wasn't talking Wall Street. He was deep in the carjacking game, riding with Lyric's wild brother, doing all kinds of illegal stuff, stealing cars, chopping them up, making money the dirty way. That's the kind of business he was into, and he dragged Joshua right into the mud with him. Truth is, Ron saw Joshua for what he was, a hard head with no sense of direction, someone still figuring life out but easy to sway. You can tell Ron looked down on him, like Josh was just some pawn he could use. It was shady from the jump. Lamar Tate, the man behind Ron, was 24 years old at the time of Jason's lyric. You might also remember him from Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, where he was hilarious as Ashtray's pops, the dad who looked younger than his own son. He also showed up in Barbershop, 2002, and Janky Promoters, 2009. While Lamar didn't land as many movie gigs after Jason's lyric, he's been doing his thing on and off the screen. And fun fact, his brother is Larenz Tate, the iconic O-Dog from Menace to Society. While Larenz may be the more famous of the two, Lamar has been a big influence in his brother's journey and success. You can just tell, Lamar's the cool, grounded one in the family. Today, Lamar Tate is 55 years old, and even if he's not a household name, he's always been part of the culture. Every 90s hood movie had that one dude who brought chaos just by stepping on the scene. In Jason's lyric, that guy was Alonzo. And let's be real, if your name's Alonzo and you're claiming to be a G in South Central, folks probably sizing you up before you even get a word out. That name ain't scaring nobody. You'd probably get chefed up before lunchtime. Anyway, let's talk about Alonzo, played by none other than Anthony Sean Chris, better known as Treach from Naughty by Nature. The same Treach who gave us OPP and had everybody yelling, "You down with OPP? Yeah, you know me." In Jason's lyric, Alonzo was Lyric's brother, but you wouldn't know it by the way he treated her. He was the loud, toxic, gun-toting gang leader who thought running the block meant disrespecting his own blood. This man would walk up in Lyric's workplace, a fast food spot by the way, just to flex on her in front of her coworkers and check on his busty girlfriend Marty. And I mean, the man had no filter. Remember when he said Lyric wore her pants so tight that her lil kitty cat can't even breathe? Yeah, wild. If you know, you know. Alonzo was the type who didn't ride for family or community. He rode for himself, and maybe for Marty, who seemed to be the only one he really had a soft spot for. Anthony Sean Criss was 24 years old at the time. While he's mostly known as the lead rapper of Naughty by Nature, Treach has been doing the acting thing too. You might have seen him in Juice, 1992, The Meteor Man, 1993, First Time Felon, 1997, and a bunch of indie films. He may play the villain on screen, but in real life, Treach is a cool, down-to-earth guy who's always stayed connected to the streets and the culture. Today, Treach is 54 years old and still doing his thing in music, holding it down as a hip-hop legend and continuing the legacy he helped build in the golden age of rap. And then we have Marty, or as some of y'all might remember her, Miss Big Busty, played by the ever-striking Lisa Nicole Carson. Marty was Lyric's best friend and co-worker at the local fast food spot, the kind of place that smelled like grease and broken dreams. She wasn't just flipping burgers and pouring drinks, she was also dropping deep quotes from philosophers, like she had a master's degree in Greek literature. Seriously, Marty could hit you with a Socrates quote while frying chicken. She was funny, soulful, and smart, and she served as Lyric's go-to girl for advice, support, and sometimes just real talk. But here's the sad part. For all that knowledge, all those deep quotes and introspective thoughts, Marty didn't seem to know her own worth. It's like she could teach self-love to the world, but forgot to give a little of that to herself. Because let's be real, how on earth was she dating Alonzo? Yeah, that guy, Lyric's brother, the walking red flag. Man, I hated that dude. Loud, violent, disrespectful, and yet Marty was caught up in his world like it made sense. Lisa Nicole Carson was 25 years old when she played Marty, and back then she was on the rise. Her career had started in 1991 with an episode of Law and Order, and a year later, she appeared on The Cosby Show. After Jason's Lyric, she landed some solid film roles. Devil in a Blue Dress, 1995, Love Jones, 1997, and Eve's Bayou, all certified classics. But her biggest break came when she starred on Ally McBeal, where she became a household name. She had the looks, the talent, the vibe, everything Hollywood loves. But behind the scenes, Lisa was hurting. In 2000, at the height of her fame, she suffered a mental health breakdown. She was later committed to a mental facility and ended up taking a break from acting for nearly a decade. It was one of those moments where fame and personal pain collided, and sadly, it took her out of the spotlight. Today, Lisa Nicole Carson is 55 years old. She's healed, she's standing tall again, and she's trying to find her way back. Back into an industry that can be so quick to forget you once you step away. You gotta ask yourself, how does a woman with that much beauty, grace, and wisdom end up battling so much alone? It's heartbreaking, but we're rooting for you, Lisa. Always. Let's talk about Fast Freddy, played by Russian McDonald, a character that low-key broke my heart. Back in the day, Freddy was that guy on the block with moves so slick and feet so quick, folks probably gave him the name Fast Freddy for that very reason. Man had fast feet, no doubt. Jason and Joshua would rush outside just to see him dance, like it was a block party every time he hit the pavement. He was pure joy in motion, a local legend in his own way. But fast forward some years, and Fast Freddy wasn't so fast anymore. The same dude who once moved like lightning was now moving through the streets begging for change, looking for his next high. Still had those moves, sure, but now they were fueled more by survival than celebration. And that hit hard. Because Freddy reminds you of somebody. We've all known a Fast Freddy. Somebody who had promise, had presence, and somehow life swallowed them up. Russian McDonald was 37 when he played Fast Freddy. But here's the twist. He's not really an actor. Russian's a TV heavyweight behind the scenes. He's a producer who's worked on shows like The Parkers, The Parenthood, and The Steve Harvey Show. And as a writer, he's contributed to classics like Sister Sister and The Jamie Foxx Show. Today, Russian is 68 years old, still doing his thing behind the curtain, producing, writing, and making the kind of moves that don't need a spotlight, but leave a big impact. Up next is Elmo, played by Clarence Whitmore, the man who ran the electronics store where Jason worked and probably the only grown man in the film who tried to talk some real sense into him. Elmo had been around, you could just tell. He'd seen enough young brothers crash and burn, so when he looked at Jason, he saw hope, potential, someone who could actually make it out. So when he dropped that $20,000 a year assistant manager job offer in Dallas on Jason's lap, he was dead serious about giving him a way up and out. But Jason hesitated, and Elmo knew exactly why. That brother of his. That boy, Joshua. You could see Elmo's face like, come on now, kid. Don't throw your future away for someone who ain't even trying to fix theirs. Now, let me tell you what didn't happen in the movie, but definitely played out in my imagination. Elmo walking into the shop early the next morning. The lights are off. It's quiet. A little too quiet. Then it hits him. A strange scent in the air. A mix of musk, humid bayou heat, and regret. Man walks a little further in, takes a deep breath and squints his eyes like, now hold up. Somebody been doing the grown folks dance in here? You just know Jason and Lyric broke in those speaker shelves like they were on vacation. Anyway, back to Clarence Whitmore, the man behind Elmo. Born and raised in Houston, just like where Jason's Lyric was filmed, Clarence actually got his start in the Houston soul music scene during the 1960s and 70s. He was more of a performer and community artist than a traditional actor. Aside from Jason's Lyric, he appeared in just 2 other films, Red Ink, 2000, and I Flunked Sunday School, 2006. Today, Clarence Whitmore is in his 70s and continues to make a difference behind the scenes as the artistic developer of Black American cultural and educational programs in Houston. The man may not have many credits, but he's got legacy. Up next is Miss Murphy, played by none other than the legendary Bebe Drake. She came through Elmo's electronics store with a whole lot of sass and zero patience. Her TV had been dropped off to be fixed, and let's just say, Miss Murphy was not about to let Elmo off the hook. Her screen time was short, but it added just the right amount of warmth and realism, like that auntie who always speaks her mind and keeps folks on their toes. Now let's talk about Bebe Drake, a true Hollywood veteran. Her career kicked off in the mid-1970s, and she's appeared in over 70 films and television series. She made her big screen debut in 1975, showing up in Report to the Commissioner and Friday Foster. Just 2 years later, she held her own opposite Richard Pryor in the classic comedy Which Way Is Up, and honestly, she's been doing her thing ever since. At the time of Jason's Lyric, Bebe Drake was 54 years old, and still bringing that unmistakable energy to the screen. Today, she's 84 years old, aging gracefully, and still cherished as one of those iconic character actresses who made every role count. Whether she's stealing scenes or just checking folks about their busted TVs, Bebe's presence is always felt. Ever seen a man giving out life advice in the pouring rain, like he's holding Sunday service on a sidewalk? That was the street preacher, brought to life by Wayne Dehart. Now, his role in Jason's Lyric was brief, but it hit. His words cut through the noise like thunder, preaching truth in a city that rarely listened. Even though he's only on screen for a moment, the street preacher serves as a powerful symbolic figure. He's the voice of reason you try to ignore, but can't. His presence brings a much-needed layer of spiritual and moral reflection, grounding the film in its deeper themes, trauma, redemption, and the lifelong quest for peace. It's like, in a world gone wild, he's that flickering candle of clarity. At the time of Jason's Lyric, Wayne Dehart was in his 40s. His acting journey started back in the late 80s, with a role in They Still Call Me Bruce. He even popped up in RoboCop 2, not front and center, but if you paused just right, you'd spot him in the background. And of course, folks remember him from the 1993 film A Perfect World, where he stood out even among bigger names. Wayne's one of those solid actors who might not always be in the spotlight, but when he shows up, you feel it. He's had a career filled with background and supporting roles, the kind that help build a movie's soul. Today, he's in his 70s, still one of those underappreciated gems. And in Jason's Lyric, he reminded us that sometimes the loudest truth comes from the quietest corner. And lastly, we have Olivia Gatewood, who played the carjack victim in one of the film's most intense and telling moments. In that quick scene, the lady is just sitting quietly in her car, minding her business, when out of nowhere Joshua, madman on a leash, comes storming in and jacks her ride like he's got absolutely nothing to lose. You could see the fear on her face. Olivia sold that moment, and though the scene was brief, it showed just how far gone Joshua was, spiraling and running wild with no care for consequences. Now, I couldn't wrap this up without giving Olivia Gatewood her flowers. She may not have had a lot of screen time, but she definitely left a mark. She was in her 30s during filming, and today she's probably in her 60s. Olivia herself still acknowledges this role on her socials, and for that reason, we close out this journey with her, a reminder that even in small roles, great performances live on. And there you have it, Jason's Lyric, a film filled with love, pain, poetry, and chaos. From the dreamers to the hustlers, the broken to the hopeful, every character brought something real to the table. It wasn't just about romance, it was about survival, healing, and the hard choices we make when love and loyalty pull us in different directions. Whether they went on to become household names or quietly faded into the background, every actor left a piece of themselves in this story. And for those of us who grew up on these kinds of films, Jason's Lyric wasn't just a movie, it was a moment. Thanks for watching. If this brought back memories, go ahead and hit that like button. Share it with someone who used to watch BET after dark. And don't forget to subscribe for more then and now stories from the movies that shape the culture. Till next time, this is Movie Bites, signing out.